Much better episodes this week. Thank you, Naruhisa Arakawa, at least for the first one. Yeah, he's been pretty frequently a writer for Lupat during this teens episode arc. I'm kind of curious what happened, because I know next week is an actual story arc episode for the first one we've had in quite some time, and Junko Kimura's only coming back to that, but hey, that's the premiere of Lupat X, the double agent, so who knows how they're going to do with that. But this time it's a Sakuya episode for the Patranger side of this conflict, and as I've noted before, the reason why the Patranger consistently don't work for me is when Keiichiro is the front man. I'm less hostile towards Tsukasa episodes or Sakuya episodes as long as he stays in the background and doesn't overshadow them, or the Lupin Ranger do something stupid to also overshadow them when it should have been just their episode, full on, with them actually being, or rather actually getting respect and not doing the stupid goofball plots which are not a credit to this at all in the quality of the narrative. But here, I'd say it's more playing on cliche, as the start off is cliche for it, but honestly I haven't seen a episode quite like this to my memory. So, okay, it uses familiar storytelling archetypes, but that's usually Naruhisa Arakawa's strength in using things we have seen before, but mashes up in ways that we haven't seen this iteration of things. In this episode, a police commissioner for the Global Police Division that the Patranger are part of has it out for Sakuya after Sakuya stops a mugger who is secretly a gangler, thinking that is poor press for the police in the face of how the Lupin Ranger keep getting all the publicity and credit, because the Lupin Ranger are far more competent than the police officers because they have Keiichiro in charge. And no, I'm not changing that opinion. Had Sakuya been the main character of the Patranger side, just switch the red and greens, I don't think we would have this much of a problem with the series as I do. It's really the constant problem lately that the Reds are, I've commented on this so many other places elsewhere, that the Reds are the consistent problems of Super Sentai. But yeah, Sakuya is getting manhandled and berated by this guy for just doing the honorable thing, and thinks that he's a complete slouch and loser because own personal biases. So Hilltop tries to pacify the guy by taking them out to lunch to Bistro Jour, where the Lupin Ranger work. They've become friends and frequent customers over the course of the series. Again, good use of continuity. When the gangler that Sakuya stopped, who's in human form currently, reveals itself, it's actually a partial remodeling of a previous monster suit, and honestly, it shares so few differences. It shares so few similarities to the suit, which the wiki says has been. I can't talk today. It shares so few commonalities with the previous suit that the wiki says was remodeled. It might be just that they mass-produced a few parts for this character's legs, because both of them kind of have this, well, okay, the last one was supposed to be based on a deer, and this one is a octopus in a diver outfit, but it's pretty just the legs that have the similarity that was noted by the, wiki people. So, yeah, because it's an octopus face thing, tentacles wrapping around its body, and they're all coming out of a diver's helmet. That is legitimately creepy, and goes well to the monster motif in that they're thieves and treasure hunters and criminals and whatnot. Is, hey, that's legitimately monstrous and what. Plus, it matches the ability too, as the monster special ability is to turn itself invisible. Invisible ink. I can't believe that no one decided to think of that pun. Granted, later in the episode, they expose its abilities by splashing the thing with non-invisible ink, so there's kind of a running effect of it that makes it so that it's visible, so I guess they kind of did notice it, but they don't make a overt allusion to invisible ink in the episode. I guess the closest they get is Umika trying to make a squid octopus joke that didn't really translate quite well, in my opinion, but hey, the subtitles group I use actually tried to retain it, so kudos to them. But anyways, since this thing can turn itself invisible, it gets revenge on Sakuya by basically, while invisible, holding Sakuya in key places and making it seem as if he's wrecking everything, pouring the soup dish on the commissioner, and then kicking the asses of all the other Patranger who are completely unexpected for this, even while Sakuya's saying that someone's moving me, I've lost control of my body. And no one is listening nor paying attention to him, and even the Lupin Rangers seem a bit baffled by this, at least up until the point where Good Striker reveals that it can sense a Lupin collection piece, and the related Gangler had been recently in the store. This gets the Lupin Ranger thinking about what could have caused this, and of course connecting it to what happened to Sakuya, even as Sakuya is placed under house arrest for 2 weeks, pending, I guess not pending the investigation, but it's basically the next step down from being straight up fired, as Hilltop actually talked the commissioner guy from actually doing that, since, well, it would be hard to replace an actual Patranger because they got specifically scouted and chosen for that assignment from the police forces. It's like, there's probably not a good next best representative for them to immediately call on, and operating Patranger down would probably make it easier in the commissioner's eyes to, well, let the Lupin Ranger steal more of the credit that should be, in their eyes, going to the police division. Granted, again, to my many critiques of this entry, the Patranger would probably be getting more of the credit in the saving people department if they actually let the, cooperated with the Lupin Ranger, since all the Lupin Ranger wants are the artifacts that the Gangler have. If it was evenly split to the police defeating the monsters, the police can take the credit for keeping people safe. The Lupin Ranger from the shadows can achieve their goal of collecting the Lupin collection pieces, and both sides could be happy. This is, again, why the conflict between these two forces is stupid, because, as I keep saying, on the technicality that the Lupin collection are pieces stolen by Lupin, stolen from Lupin himself, and even with the revelation last episode that Lupin stole those artifacts from the Gangler world, they're just... Let me clarify. There has been no criminal conduct with regards to these items beyond the Gangler stealing them. The Lupin Ranger recovering these artifacts is not technically illegal. You could certainly bust them for all the property damage that they cause in their antics, but that's not actually what they're charging them with. That is not what they've ever been charging them with. Thus, the accusations against them by the police of them being criminals continues to be invalid. So, again, bigger narrative problem with the series, and the conflict is dumb, because just because they call themselves thieves does not actually make them criminals, and Keiichiro and the rest of the global police don't seem to be able to distinguish that. Moving on, though. The Lupin Ranger go to see Sakuya to confirm their suspicions, and that in turn gets Sakuya thinking about what happened, and regarding an earlier police report of a bunch of cars and other locations being slashed into pieces with no one seeing the perpetrator, it gets Sakuya to realize that the monster can turn itself invisible, and breaks his house arrest to go and help his team, who are now under attack by it. Hilltop, of course, breaking his own orders to give his subordinate his weapons back. Sakuya ends up saving Keiichiro and Tsukasa from it, because somewhat out of character here, Tsukasa can't connect the dots to an invisible monster, and basically Sakuya gets acquitted of his previous charges, after they defeat the monster and get good publicity to the global police, because of course the commissioner is not going to punish the guy that is now making them look good. Because nepotism. Or cronyism. So, yeah, this episode mostly works as the problem character is part of an archetype of problem characters. This wouldn't be the first time in a work Naruhisa Arakawa has an involvement in where a police commissioner is corrupt or incompetent, while the beat cops or specialized detectives are actually the, I don't want to say more intelligent because of my problems with the Patranger, but more competent and capable of doing their job in more of the proper circumstances for such procedure. Honestly, this commissioner being incompetent and Keiichiro through the episode kissing his ass kind of more explains why Keiichiro was assigned to this unit than any citation of his own abilities, because that is another thing that is apparently rampant in Japan's police force. Though I'm not saying it's over here, considering how bad it's gotten over here as of late, but still. It's more long-lasting scene of their media, as I've noticed it. So, yeah, this was a far better episode than the last several Lupat episodes that I've had major problems with. Likewise is Build finally doing something smart. Or, like, it's not that the Build has not done some things that are smart, but as I noted last week, it's finally come down to the show suffering so severe arc fatigue that it's lost viewers fast. This episode, however, paradigm shifts back to the early show when it was good, as after Genius's form debut battle, it takes things slower in the characters all looking over and discussing what's happened and what Evolt might be up to. As amidst the Genius form battle, Evolt shows up and basically punches out Kazumi simply to take the lost bottles of the Three Crows. This episode more establishes on what the lost bottles actually are. Instead of the standard 60, they are entirely human-made and human-selected bottles made from some type of other essence or other formation of nebula gas, and their creation was first pioneered by Sento's father, you know, as part of his research in stopping Evolt. Basically, instead of the all of the standard 60 lost bottles are more representative of a concept or species. There are a lot of differing variety of rabbits. There are varying types of dragons, whereas the lost bottles are more specific. An owl, a quagga beetle instead of a generic beetle. A castle is a specific location, or at least castles are descriptive of usually a specific type of building. A hammer is specific. A cobra is specific. The only kind of exception here is the bat lost bottle, as there's also the bat standard full bottle. So, as Evolt explains it, these were all man-made, and through his own plotting, he can revise them, and using a 7th Pandora panel, at least this is my speculation part, bioform the rest of the planet to be more like Evolt, or at least affected by the people that made like the people who were affected by Pandora Box's light to, you know, be more selfish and conceited and corrupt and all that, basically all the things evil likes about humanity that are our darkest impulses and whatnot. So that happens, we have a entire planet of maniacs and chaos that evil can just thrive within as they destroy themselves. So, yeah, kinda need to stop him from collecting those. Granted, he's missing about 3, and 3 have not been introduced at all. But the way he's using them is he's also creating some minions, or at least, I'm forgetting his name now. The guy who is Mad Rogue. Yeah, I am completely blanking on the guy's name. But he is using the Lost Bottles and Evolt's technology, or not Evolt's technology, the technology from the Evol driver to make true Lost Smash. Now, the previous form of Smash was the Clone Smash, and they appeared right around Cross the Dragon Magma's upgrade into that form. And they basically were nothing but more cannon fodder, whereas these now Lost Smash are using the Lost Bottles as a means by which to not only inject a new entire tier of hazard level within their host bodies, but to fuse with the Clone Smash into a even stronger form. Of course, this makes them all the more volatile, but it's making a new minion class because of the Lensman's armed ratio of this series, where, yeah, Genius and Crusty Dragon Magma and Rogue and Grease can all pretty much crush any type of other type of Smash in instance, especially in comparison to how they all started out as, even though we are once more recycling suits. Fortunately, Genius Form shows its own special power in this when it's revealed that its special finishers can actually affect the hazard level of the users of both the Rider system and the Smash Full Bottles to basically negate any advantage, remove the nebula gas from the subjects, and remove any of the corruption. This is an important plot point as Kazumi gets injected with more nebula gas to the point he is like his friends the Three Crows and basically other people that are overexposed to nebula gas, in that if he is knocked out of battle while using the full bottle technology, he could potentially die as his body tears itself apart from the nebula gas exposure. The unwritten thing... Sorry, not the unwritten. The unsaid thing about this is Genius's ability to negate this in a person so they wouldn't die will also completely remove their hazard level and ability to use the system, as in this episode, Kazumi, after getting this exposure and seeing what Genius can do to it, says to not negate what has been done to him because it will make him less battle effective. And like I said, the unsaid thing about that is it might remove his ability entirely to use the Splash Driver. So this slow it down approach works because it allows more character time. Especially in the opening bit, as after they get past how Sento has recovered almost all of his memories of being Takumi Katsuragi, we see a bit of downtime with Gentoku basically having absolutely no fashion sense. Now, in the moment, it's hilarious because he is basically dressed as a bug catcher from Pokemon. You know, the trainer class who always specializes in bugs. Because the first thing that came to my mind is, I like shorts. They're comfy and easy to wear, when I saw his the first of his gaudy outfits. And then the thought occurred to me, okay, Gentoku, I know you're trying to now embrace the whole love and peace thing, but this is definitely not the way to go about it, because now you've kind of become the laughingstock from the previously very serious character, and you've not exactly completed your redemption turn yet. Granted, all of the main cast characters have this quirk to them that allows them to have sillier moments, but out of all of them that have occurred, it feels like this is the most out of place and most poorly timed for such a thing, because I think it would be better if they didn't do the all-and-out super gaudy thing and actually done it better as a subtle... okay, not exactly subtle, but everybody freaking out about his choices in clothing, and him being completely oblivious to them freaking out like this. Or at least completely oblivious to how bad his taste in clothes here are, because it kind of feels like a Sixth Doctor thing. You know, the whole Colin Baker, the Technicolor Dreamcoat of Atrocities kind of thing. it kind of feels like they were going for that with how gaudy it is, and them overdoing it. Funny joke in the moment. As part of a larger, very dramatic narrative, it is very out of place. I mean, the show does a lot of fourth wall breaks, but this is not one of the good ones. One of my other critiques of this episode, however, is Ryuga hands Kazumi a new dragon splash jelly. Now, where did that come from? I mean, yeah, Ryuga had a splash jelly before, so he could become Krusty Dragon Charge, but when his Splash Driver was destroyed, that thing was petrified and then, through Burnage's power, turned into the Krusty Dragon Magma Full Bottle. Or at least, I'm pretty sure that's what happened. I went back and checked that episode. That's what seemed to happen there with what Burnage did with the remains of his Splash Driver. So, that was turned into a new full bottle. Where did this Splash Jelly come from? Did Sento make a new one at some point? It's really not explained where that comes from. I mean, it would make more sense if Sento just made a few spares, but we've not seen that. Or even possibly made a new one specifically for Kazumi to use. Hell, this would also be explained if Sento was the one to give Kazumi the Splash Jelly as another additional tool from him having the spare nebula gas, because he has to have the spare nebula gas. He's created things that use nebula gas. It's just, this is a significant oversight in the series, and it's all for the stupid thing of giving Kazumi his own new power-up. When already transformed as Grease and he uses the Dragon Splash Jelly in his driver, then he gets 2 Twin Breakers. Now, Kazumi has been neglected in the power-up front pretty much all series. He really needs... If they make V-Cinemas for this run, he definitely needs a new form, and not just a remodeled, repainted Grease body, but an actual new form. So, this power-up, it feels lame. It feels really, really lame, especially since Grease getting an upgrade was actually teased for a while in the promotional material, but apparently that got scrapped, if it ever existed in the first place, for them giving Cross Z the Great Cross Z repaint armor. At least that's half assumption, half actually a lot of his presumption, but it makes more sense than them just teasing something that wasn't going to exist in the first place. And I don't get why, because everybody else has gotten some type of upgrade, even though Night Rogue going to Rogue friggin' took... I have very loud neighbors, I apologize. Even though Gentoku going from Night Rogue to Rogue is enemy faction with a transformation artifact to actual Kamen Rider, there's a difference there, but everyone has gone from one thing to a new power-up except for that guy, and this is not exactly a great thing. Granted, I think the idea was so Bandai could increase sales of the Twin Breaker, but it just didn't work as a power-up. Other things about Genius, since this was really the proper debut episode where it had 2 proper battles that showed off its abilities. It has 3 attacks. One is using all the bottles on half of the body to enhance a punch with his right side, and the second is using the other half of the full bottles to enhance a kick in his right leg. And then the finishing move is a augmentation of all the full bottles into one massive hit, which, as said before, is the one can affect the hazard level of an opposing person. And as far as we know, that's all it does. Now, we got the stat lines for Build Genius form, and it's weaker than It's weaker than Tank form. So, yeah. look, this is not the first time we've had a final form that is weaker than one of the character's super forms, but the difference is usually it's a more balanced stat variety, like take type, drive type formula to drive type Trideron. Drive type Trideron is slower than formula, but it is more balanced stat-wise and gains versatility from a more augmented tire change system. Gaim Kiwami is weaker than Gaim Kachidoki, as it also loses a bunch of armoring, but is a good trade-off because it allows Gaim Kiwami to use all of the Lockseed-based weapons, which can even be called upon together for augmented attacks and a more diverse set of strategies, and is a lot faster and more agile in battle than Gaim Kachidoki allowed for. Those are examples of power-ups that have a weaker... Those are both examples of riders who have a weaker final form, but are heavily offset by the improved ability sets. And then you have Den-O Liner form, which is the weakest of the Den-O forms, bar platform, and its only striking ability is to call hard light versions of the trains that don't offer it enough power and versatility to match up with Climax form, let alone anything else that it faces in the Den-O series, so it is arguably the worst final form for a given rider. Genius suffers that same problem in that it does not offhand seem to be a superior form to what's come before, with the only unique and notable ability is its ability to affect the hazard levels of its enemies. This could be offset by Build Genius being allowed to use all of the weapons that Sento has created thus far, kind of like Hazard appeared to, without any restrictions, but we kind of have not seen yet it use the full bottle buster for anything, nor any of the other build weapons, which it really needs to. I would love to see that, just so we could see Sento slot the full rabbit tank bottle into the full bottle buster, and then charge it up even more with triggering one of Genius's finishing moves for further augmentation like that. Maybe that might happen when they get the Pandora box and their full bottles back, but I doubt it. Right now, it's just not that impressive to me, especially since Kamen Rider Poppy can kick Sento's ass entirely. I love actually saying that because female rider is stronger than the riders of all the next series. That's still hilarious to me. So yeah, a bit disappointed on that, but we've got a bit more of a sight of Genius's look overall, and I think the eyes are gaudy, but that's my only real complaint with how all the full bottles are docked into each other. I think had the eyes been a bit more of a clear pane instead of 3 or 4 lines with the full bottles coming out of them, like had they not done the thing with the eyes, I think the form would have really come together, but as it is, not the best final form. My roommate Matt's been collecting the full bottles. I've kind of skipped on that collectible this year, and he's iffy on whether he'll get it, to be honest. Because it's like, you want these amalgamated final forms to have some type of greater response and ability. That is what makes them cool. Whereas here it just feels like another Sparkling where it doesn't really do anything notable, which is kind of unfortunate. So yeah, I like that that build is slowing itself down again, because to actually like focus on character development and whatnot, because the war arc really dragged on for too long, even though it has separate parts in it. Is you can only fight the same enemy with no breakup in that conflict for so long, and Bill definitely hit that marker where they just weren't doing anything noticeably different than week to week. And that happens when you can just substitute a name and have the same plot happen for several episodes in a row. Yeah. So hopefully Build will have a better final ending arc, as we're in the home stretch, people, like last 2 months of the show. That's all I got. I will see you all later.